Welcome everybody, and today we are going to be reviewing a 2000 Audi A6 with the 4.2 V8. This car is really fun to drive. Jeremy Clarkson said when it came out, when it came with the 1.8 turbo with the 5-speed manual, that it was really sluggish. And when the V6 came out, he said it was better, but it still needed more. And in 2000, Audi introduced the 4.2 liter V8 to the Audi A6, as well with the Quattro system. Now, if we walk inside, notice that the interior is very plush, also in very good condition for this vehicle's age. Pop the hood underneath here. Come over to the front end and look at that 4.2 liter V8. Now, if you can see, there's not a whole lot of room in there. I mean, this thing was crammed in here. When Audi came out with this generation of A6, which I believe was in 1997, I don't think they ever imagined that they would put a V8 in it. But with competitors such as the Mercedes-Benz E430 and the BMW 5 Series boasting much bigger powertrains, much more powerful powertrains, and a much better driving experience, Audi really didn't have a chance if they wanted to keep up, but to put a V8 in it. Now, if you look, they have put a lot of effort into the interior with this wood grain, although it is plastic and, you know, fake, but it still looks good. The very soft touch door panels, even the armrests are soft touch. We'll hop inside and everything is soft touch. The dashboard, the armrests, the seats, which are very plush leather, sunroof, suede headliner, beautiful visors, although, hello everybody, the visors are not wrapped in suede or Alcantara or whatever you want to call it these days. And I've noticed with vehicles such as the LS400, the Mercedes-Benz E430, the 5 Series, they all come with the suede wrapped visors, which, you know, you might not think is important, but it is. I mean, it really makes a feel of the car feel a lot more special. Same with the sunroof cover. That is also not wrapped in suede. And so it looks a little cheap in certain areas, but a very high quality vehicle. Now, this one is not stock. It has KW coilovers. It's been dropped, I would say probably an inch, maybe closer to 2. It's on Audi A8 wheels from this time period, and it really fills the fenders. I mean, when the V8 came out, they came with these widened fenders. They had to do it on the front because they needed to widen the track width in order to fit that V8, which for the size of the car, a V8 is big. I mean, this is not a big car, especially by modern standards. Yes, it's an S6 or an A6, sorry. But that, you know, these big luxury sedans, they weren't that big back in the day compared to an A6 now, which is huge. I mean, they're, you know, coming up towards like 50s Cadillacs huge. Maybe not that big, but, you know, they're big cars. And so when they came out with the V8, they widened these fenders, and it just really brought the look of the car together. Came with the projector headlights, which, you know, have faded over time, but, you know, they were revolutionary at that time period. All the luxury cars were coming with projector headlights, and, you know, not everybody had them. Even the Mercedes-Benz, the E430, E320, even the E55 AMG, they still used regular halogen bulbs. The LS400, I believe, was one of the first to do it. I believe they started coming out with the halogen or the projector bulbs in 1998 with the facelift. BMW is known for, you know, they were the first ones to revolutionize those halo lights. They patented it for a long time, and then when they went for a repatent, you know, they weren't granted that. But it came in this beautiful green color, which has really held up over the 24 years since this car left the showroom floor. If we open up the back of the car, you notice this interior is very plush. Everything's leather, you know, really high quality. Let's hop in the back here, and you know, you feel feel like you're in a quality vehicle. If you hear those doors, no rattles, no shakes. I mean, it feels really good in here. We have rear heated seats, 6 different settings. Adjustable climate control back here, which, you might not think is cool, but back in the 90s, early 2000s, having rear climate control and especially rear heated seats was a big feature. We open up here, we have these door cubbies, which, open up, which are amazing, especially for the rear, to have door cubbies in the rear, as well as ashtrays. Looks like there's a little detail towel in there. Didn't know that. And we walk up to the front door. We have another extendable one, another extendable storage compartment. The trunk is big. I have all my detail equipment in there, so it's a little bit messy. Same with the passenger side. 2 openable containers. Glove box, decent size, nothing special. You'd want more. There's not a whole lot of storage space in here. If you open up this center console, there's not much, but it is adjustable, which is amazing. You don't think about it, but it's such a quality of life feature. In terms of cup holders, there is one here, which does not work very well, and this one, which is sketchy to say the least. We have a little storage cubby here. Front heated seats, 6 different settings, dual climate control, defrost front and rear, that's standard. This has Audi, Volkswagen, their infamously unreliable Tiptronic transmission. Now, it feels good. This one has been serviced properly. That's a big issue with these cars, is that nobody services them. And so it has been serviced properly. It still feels a little chunky. They weren't really designed to handle this power. I mean, the same unit that they put in the 1.8 turbo Jetta is the same unit that they put in the V8 A6. So there's more to be desired with the transmission. The auto shift feature, it's pretty sluggish. You don't really want to use it. Hop in the driver's seat. And you can throw it in drive, and then you have the auto stick feature, which it's not responsive at all. Looks like that popped open. What is decently responsive is these gear selectors. You have 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and drive. These seem way more responsive than the auto stick feature. When you use the auto stick feature, it's super clunky and just not great. This does have an aftermarket stereo or a head unit. The speakers are factory Audi Bose sound system. Really good, especially for the time and how old this car is. Put that back in park. I already showed you the visors. Sunroof is great. It's a little slow compared to some cars, but that also could be, issues just with the age of the vehicle. This interior. Now, this looks very comfortable. We'll look on the side. We have fully adjustable lumbar, but they're not super comfortable. They feel great for the first half hour. Once you've been in the car for an hour and a half, the backaches start. And Jeremy Clarkson said that when this car came out, and it was an issue that was never really dealt with until the next generation A6. Even with the lumbar support, you can move it around. It's not super adjustable. So it's not the most comfortable driving experience in terms of back support. But the first half an hour of driving, it feels great. We have full headlights. We have fog lights down below. Take a look at that. Fog lights all in working order. This was painted black at one point. I believe this would have came chromes from the factory. Everything was chrome in the 90s. But these big wheels, I really like the way they fill out the arches. This arch that they had for the A6 with the V8 and the S6 and the RS6, I always thought it looked really good, but the wheels were never big enough. So with these bigger wheels and it being lowered, it really fills the arches. Now we have really big brakes, especially for the time period. Even performance cars in the late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, they were really starting to get a lot of power. So when the power started to, everything was getting close to 300 to 400 horsepower, which was a lot back in the day. Nothing really compared to today's numbers, but It's a lot. This 4.2 liter V8 was rated at 300 horsepower, 295 foot-pounds of torque, and it's not a super heavy vehicle. Even with the all-wheel drive system, I think dry weight is around 3,800 pounds. So, you know, full tank of gas, a person driving, you're around 4,000, 4,100 pounds. But yeah, let's hop in. Let's go for a drive. We have very basic gauges. That's one of my complaints with the vehicles, that the gauge cluster, it's just not, it doesn't feel like it belongs in this car. It feels like it belongs in a base model Jetta. I think they could have done a lot better with making the gauge cluster feel more, you know, three-dimensional. The steering is incredibly light, which is nice for a luxury car. When you're in the corners, it does weighten up. It feels good. You know, you want to take a corner a little quick, especially with this aftermarket suspension. It feels way better than what I'm assuming stock would feel. I've driven an E430 and an LS400, and you know, they drive great, but man, they are boaty. Picks up good. Not a fast car. I believe the V6 that came out, I believe it was 2.7 liter twin turbo V6. It's rated at 250 horsepower. That ran a faster 0 to 60 time and a faster quarter mile time than the V8. But the V8 was decently amount heavier, and you know, it's a V8. I mean, it's a little bit better. We'll get on it here. Doing about 45, and let's pin it. There we go. There's the kick down. Picks up good. Nice power delivery. The throttle response in this vehicle is amazing. I've driven a lot of cars, Mustangs, you know, never driven an Audi before, Volkswagens, Corvettes, and nothing has had the throttle response that this has. Let's close this sunroof. It's very quiet. You know, at lower speeds, around 30 to 40 miles an hour, it does buffer, which is really annoying. You roll down the windows and you don't get any buffering, but with the sunroof, you do get, you know, a decent amount of buffering, and it does get annoying. You can drown it out with the stereo, but you know, who wants to do that? You option the sunroof because you want to have the sunroof down. Steering is very light, very responsive, no dead zone. You don't, you know, if I do this with the wheel, it's, you know, instantly it's turning. It's not like certain cars where you can move the wheel a certain amount and nothing happens. We'll try this auto stick feature. We'll downshift. Now it shifts. Now it shifts. Very, very slow to respond. But, I mean, I'm sure it was decent for 2000. Picks up very well. That was 70. This vehicle has 111,599 miles, extremely low miles for being a 24, 25-year-old car. Oh, we got somebody passing up here. Let's hit the brakes. We're way up in the mountains, so people get impatient with slow drivers. Nissan Murano, that's no surprise. And it's very quiet in here. This Audi A6 does have a aftermarket muffler. It's not loud. It doesn't make it louder. It just gives it a little bit throatier of a tone. I've been heard you can hear it decently well from the outside, but from in here, you would think it was stock, especially for a V8 Audi. I mean, Audi's buyer base, especially back in the early 2000s, was a lot different than Audi's buyer base today. You know, this was advertised as a sports sedan, but I don't think it was ever, you know, bought by sports sedan people. I think that would have been the S6 or the RS6. Now, the RS6 has way more power than this. This is rated at 300 horsepower, like I said. The RS6 is the 4.2 liter V8 twin turbocharged. That's rated at 450 horsepower. It still uses the same Tiptronic transmission, which was not rated for that. I really don't even think it's rated for this amount of power. It feels chunky if you get on the throttle too hard. It gear hunts. And I've driven a 1.8 liter Passat with the Tiptronic, and that feels way better. You could get an Audi A6 with a manual, a 5-speed or a 6-speed, but that was only with the 1.8 turbo and the 2.7 liter V6. You could not get a manual 4.2 liter V8 A6, which is really sad but understandable. Probably would have, you know, done okay. I don't know how Audi's manual transmissions hold up towards power. I hear they're pretty good. I've had a Volkswagen product with a manual transmission, and it was great. Really responsive, lightweight clutch, super easy to drive. Shut that climate control down. It's getting warm in here. But very, very nice driving experience. Certainly better than a Mercedes E430. The E430, it's a great car. It's a lot faster than this. It makes less power, but their 5-speed transmission has a lot way shorter geared. 0 to 60 is almost a full second faster. But you know, through the corners, that car feels boaty. It's really slippery. It wants to step out. Now they have traction controls in those Mercedes, and it works good. It's a little invasive, but it works good. I mean, that's what traction control is supposed to do. This does have the traction control, the ESP system. I don't know where the button is to turn it off. I don't feel the need to turn it off. I've never felt it kick in, even in the wet. You know, it doesn't seem to interfere with the vehicle at all. I think you'd really have to push it hard in order to get it to interfere with this Quattro system. Super great all-wheel drive system. I mean, you can, especially in the rain, you know, you're sitting at a light and you make a right turn or whatnot, and you can just kind of turn the wheel and, you know, give about 70-75% throttle, and it pulls right on through. It's really good. Way better than I ever imagined an all-wheel drive system could be, especially for a vehicle of this age. You know, it's decent power. It pulls you right through the corners. And, you know, I don't know how these vehicles handled stock, but with this aftermarket suspension, I mean, it drives good. The transmission is not responsive, like not responsive at all. And I'm not comparing it to, you know, newer vehicles. It's not a fair competition. But even vehicles of this age, around the same time period, you know, it doesn't really keep up with them. Handles good. Even the roads are a little damp around here. Super tight, twisty roads. Pulls you right on through. Woo. You felt the suspension swaying a little bit. It's not really tuned for, you know, hard driving. I mean, this car feels really good at like 6/10. You know, it gets you through the corners quickly. It's not really a car you'd want to push hard, like on the limit. It's not that kind of car. But it feels good. It feels good. I don't know if it would feel this good stock, but with this lowered suspension and these bigger wheels, wider wheels, this has 255s all the way around. I believe stock that would have came with 235s, which would, you know, be the same as the LS400. I believe the Mercedes-Benz E430 also had 235s all the way around, and when I drove that drove great, even with those narrower tires. The direction change is great. The steering is so responsive, and it weightens up, which is nice. It's like these older luxury cars, they're very easy to drive, very light steering. You know, not really a whole lot of feel, and that's okay. They're luxury cars. But this one, you know, low speeds, you know, just driving around town or driving on the highway, even on a road like this, if you're going slow, it's super light, super easy to drive. But, you know, anytime you push it even a little bit, you can feel the steering weighting up, which is not anything I would have expected from a vehicle of this age, or a vehicle like this. I'm sure hardcore sports cars from the 90s and the early 2000s drove really well. It does great over the bumps. I hear they did amazing over the bumps with the factory suspension. So one thing I liked about the LS400 when I drove it, I mean, it felt like you're driving on a cloud. But this drives better than an LS400 any day of the week. Any road condition, any weather condition, this drives better than an LS400 and E430. I have not driven a 5 Series, so I'd like to give that a try. Maybe that'll do better. I hear the 5 Series of this era, especially any of the, you know, the M Sport cars or an M car, which this doesn't really compete with. This would compete with, I think, would be a 540 or maybe a 540, you know, or an M540 or a, you know, 540, whatever it's called. I don't keep up with BMWs like that. But this drives great. It really does. Feel that trans catching up a little bit. Picks up good. You can hear all my detail stuff rolling around in the trunk. It was in the bucket when I started. It's not anymore. Feels really good. These seats. Now, if you're gonna really drive this car, not necessarily hard, but drive it sporty, you gotta wear something special. These seats are extremely slippery. They are bolstered, as you can see over here. You know, they got decent bolstering, but they don't hold you in at all. And even I looked at the RS6 seats, and they're a little bit more bolstered, but I don't think they'd hold you in very well either. And that's a really sporty car. You know, these cars, they don't weigh a lot, you know, especially compared to like modern vehicles. I believe the new A6 or even the A5, they're pushing 4,300, 4,400 pounds. And, you know, those obviously handle better. I mean, it's 20 years of, you know, engineering and development and, you know, research that went into making a heavy vehicle drive well. But this is good. We do have a little LCD display screen in the front. You can cycle the information. Now, that some of the LED lights are out on this, a very common issue for these vehicles. Ooh, excuse me. You have active. You can see your average speed, current temperature, active MPG or average MPG, your range. I mean, all the information you would want. Right now we're averaging 17.1 miles per gallon. Isn't great, but this vehicle can do a lot better. You hop on the highway and you sit there for an hour, 2 hours, you got a long drive, you'll get 24, 25 miles per gallon. The cruise control system, it's over here on the blinker stock. It works good, you know, but it's not very user-friendly. I mean, you activate it with a button on the end of the cruise control, and then you adjust it with a button on the front of it. So it's not, you know, it's not a one-hand position thing. You got to move your hand around a lot in order to, you know, really feel or really use the cruise control the way you'd want to. I love cruise control in cars. A good cruise control system is a lifesaver, especially, you know, if you drive a lot. And this is not very user-friendly at all. But it makes up for it, being a good handler. It's certainly a car you could take across country if you didn't have to worry about maintenance. These are incredibly expensive to maintain. You know, the cars got cheaper, the maintenance didn't. The labor, the work, the parts are more expensive, the labor's more expensive. These need transmission services, or the transmissions will go out. They need timing belts. Any luxury car of this time period usually needs timing belt service. It's a big thing with LS400s. They run great, they drive great, they'll last forever, but you got to do the timing belts. And the timing belts on these, this is worse, even worse than LS400s or E430s, because there is not a lot of room to work on this car, not at all. I believe to do the timing belts on this car, you have to pull out the front crash bar and the radiators and the whole belt drive. I mean, you got to do that with any timing belt service, but it's a hassle for sure. We do have a check engine light in this vehicle. It's for an O2 sensor. You know, it comes and goes. It doesn't affect performance at all. It's a very good driving vehicle. clunks, no rattles. Everything feels solid. And I think that's really important, especially with a luxury vehicle. You drive kind of, an old base model, Ford Focus, even a new one, a Ford Focus or a Honda Civic or anything like that, and you can feel things shaking. Sometimes you can see like the interior of the car shaking, and it doesn't show the quality of the vehicle. This is built strong. I mean, nothing rattles. I had a 2002 Escalade, and that's a luxury vehicle, American luxury vehicle, so not as nice as the German cars or the Italian cars or anything like that. British cars, Bentleys. But even that, everything rattled, and it didn't feel. It looked like a luxury car. It didn't feel like one. It didn't ride very great, and this is better than that in all scenarios. Yes, it's a car. It's not a full-size SUV, but a luxury car is a luxury car. Tran got caught up there. Get on the gas. Picks up really good at speed. Feels really stable. It doesn't feel like it wants to step out or push. It tends to understeer on the limit. It's not really a car you want to push. Especially in the rain, it likes to understeer, which is a lot better, a lot safer feeling than, an E430, which just wants to slide. That car, the Mercedes-Benz E430 wants to be a drift car, and it shouldn't be. Yes, you can get the all-wheel drive E430 and the E320, and I'm sure those are a lot better, but the rear-wheel drive E430 and the LS400, the LS400 is better in terms of, wanting to slide around everywhere. But the E430, it's a good driving car on the highway, and that's it. And this is a good driving car everywhere. For interior features, we have everything. Heated seats, like I said. The stock stereo system was not a touchscreen. This is aftermarket, but it is nice. The buttons on the steering wheel don't work with this stereo system, but they would have back in the day. I don't understand why they didn't put the cruise control buttons on the steering wheel. Mercedes didn't do that either. Toyota didn't do that either. I don't think BMW did either, and that is such a nice feature. Toyota had theirs cruise control system like down here, and that was really nice. You could just kind of hold the wheel down at the bottom and select the cruise control, accelerate, slow down, all sorts of things, and that was so much nicer. Even with the LS430, that was the same system. Now that's a great car. The LS430, rear-wheel drive. There's no all-wheel drive options. The 4.3 liter V8, great car, great driving car. A friend of mine has one and he loves it. It's also in green, and green is a great color for luxury cars. Let's talk about this color. So this is I don't know the exact name of the color, but this is a forest green, Audi color. My issues with the Audi with this green is that it looks good, but it's a very flat color. There's no flake, there's no metallic in it. It doesn't pop. Maybe it needs a cut and buff, but even that, not a whole lot of Audi colors at this time had a whole lot of pop. They wanted their cars to be super subtle and, normal looking. Jeremy Clarkson called it a business car, which I think is quite funny. Or a company car. Everything here is adjustable. All these, these vents, standard equipment. Well, the one thing I really like is that everything is illuminated, and I think that's a really good way of showing that this was a high quality vehicle. All these dials right here for the climate controls and all the buttons, and even this little cup holder thing, they're all illuminated red. Same with the gauge cluster, everything's red. And all the lights work, and it's low mileage for its age, but it's also still old. And for all that, for all that to work, I mean, every single, you know, illuminated surface on this car works, and it works perfectly. Pedal spacing, I know you can't see it, but pedal spacing is good. You know, I drive with 2 feet. Yeah, I know you're not supposed to do that. I'm a left foot braker. No, I don't ride my brakes on the highway. But the pedal spacing, it's very good for 1 foot driving. I've noticed, especially with the LS400, the brake pedal's a little too high for it to be comfortable for me. I mean, I got big feet, so maybe that's, you know, a factor. But, you know, 2 foot driving, super comfortable. You can tell that when they built this car, it was really built for Germany. I mean, when I had my Mercedes, you know, I was always made the joke, built for the Autobahn. But I really think it is. The way this car pulls past highway speeds, you know, once you get up to 70, 80, 90, you start hitting 100. The way it keeps pulling at those speeds is honestly, you know, it's astounding. Because the low end acceleration is not great. I think the 0 to 60 for this was rated around 6.8 seconds, which was really good for the time. Maybe not really good, but it was, you know, it was good. Today's standards, I mean, that's slow. Oh, you tell anybody you do 0 to 60 in 6.8 seconds, they're gonna laugh at you. But, you know, I think it's decently quick. It's not, you know, it doesn't have any trouble getting out of its way. Oh, here we go. We're at low speeds. Step on it. Hear that V8? Just keeps pulling. That's 80. That's decently quick. Very quiet in here. When I first drove this car, I was sitting at a light, and this garbage truck pulled up next to me. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I can't hear it. I rolled down my window, and it was, you know, it's a garbage truck. It's loud. And I rolled the window back up, and you can't hear anything. I mean, it was just so nice. There goes the sheriff. I've been pulled over before for having this camera on my head. They're like, what are you wearing, dude? I'm like, I'm filming a video. The one finger driving is effortless in this car. You know, you just put your hand, you know, down here or up here, and you know, who needs a Tesla when you can drive in a straight line? No issues. No hands on the wheel. Now it veers a little because of the road, but manual lane keep is what I call it. We do have a couple warning lights in this car. One of them's for a brake pad sensor. The previous owner said that he was doing the brakes and he messed up the brake pad sensor, so that's on. And then I had the brake light go out on the way up to film this video, and so now it says brake light. I gotta go stop by AutoZone and pick up a brake light. Parts for this car. Expensive. I wanted to get a new set of headlights. And those are just headlights. I wouldn't even really call headlights parts. Headlights were $600 just for a set of OEM headlights for this car. And that is, I think, astonishing. And, you know, LS400s, the Mercedes-Benz, those were nowhere near that expensive. See, right, I'm not even floored right now, and it just picks up. The kick down in this car with the pedal, you can floor it. You know, it'll go full throttle, and then if you push it harder, it'll do this click. And that's, you know, that's when it kicks down. It'll go down to its lowest gear, and it'll really get you going. Here, we can let's try the auto stick feature again. So I'm shifting now. Now it downshifts. Now it downshifts. Now it downshifts. Can we go down again? Nope, doesn't want to go down again. I believe we're in second gear. Get on it. Oh yeah, that picks up good with the auto stick. Bump it up. The one thing I like about this auto stick, even though it's not as responsive, with the LS400 and the E430 and even the LS430's, you know, manual shift mode, you know, let's say you put it in the manual shift mode, you drop it down to second, and you want to get on it. You know, you're full throttle, but, you know, sometimes you don't always want to go to red line. And with those cars, even if, you know, let's say I go from second to third, and I do it around 5,000 RPM, it'll still rev out from like second gear all the way to red line, and then it'll shift. And with this one, it'll short shift if you want a short shift, and that's nice. That really, you know, brings out the driving experience, because especially in a manual car, you might be full throttle, but you might not be redlining it all the time. So that you know, it's very, wow, that Escalade almost came in my lane. It's very responsive in that aspect, but in terms of shift speed and shift responsiveness, it's not great. Let's make a left up here. We are way out in the farmlands. Brakes are great in this car. 6-piston brakes, I believe. They look like it, for sure. Does great over the bumps. You hear a little rattling, but also it is a lowered car. Stiffer springs. Stiffer shocks. So, you know, it's going to have a little bit of rattle to it. But in terms of pricing for these vehicles, I mean, a lot of them are not well maintained. I mean, a lot of them are really cheap. You know, $2,000, $3,000 max. I mean, I think the most expensive one I've seen was $3,500, and that one had 160,000 miles on it. It needed all the maintenance. The interior was messed up, and so the pricing for these vehicles, it's low. But a lot of them have issues. None of the maintenance was done, and this one has been maintained properly. So, and I got a decent price. This is my personal vehicle. I did get a decent price for this vehicle, and you know, it was worth every penny. I mean, this drives so good, way better than anything else I've had. Haven't had to do any maintenance yet. Let's hope it stays like that for a while. Previous owner did everything. He did timing belts at 85,000, trans at 95,000. It's only at 111 now. So it's been well taken care of, and that's what these cars need. You take care of these cars and they will last a while. I mean, luxury cars are they depreciate the quickest out of any car, which doesn't make sense to me, because, you know, old tech, I think a lot of it's the old tech. That's what I've heard. But, you know, I don't have an issue with old tech. Even the touchscreen in the LS400 and the LS430, yes, it's old. Yes, it doesn't have CarPlay. You know, you can't access maps on it. You know, you could. You got to put a CD in, and it's nowhere near accurate anymore. But, you know, you don't need that, especially, you know, you got iPhones or Samsung phones. You can put maps up on that. But I never had an issue with any of those screens. They all worked great. You know, they were user friendly. They were responsive. And even, you know, without a touchscreen, it's just like a normal car without a touchscreen. You just have hard buttons, which is nice. You know, I like touchscreens. I know a lot of, you know, car enthusiasts, they don't like the big screens in cars, and I think it gets a little out of hand. You know, climate control is manual. You get buttons for that. I think that's the way it should be. The Porsche Taycan, you have to adjust your vents with, you know, the screen, and that's ridiculous. I mean, that's got to be a hassle to do while driving. This is a crazy road. Feels good, even on this wet pavement. Feels super stable. No drama, just pure driving experience. What a nice car. Give it some throttle through here and it just pulls right on through. No drama. The E430 would have stepped out or kicked in the traction control there, and this doesn't do that, and it's so good. Let's pull into here. Wow, somebody's got a big old barn going up. That's nice. Throw it in park. It does have a manual handbrake, which is nice. I don't like the feel of, you know, the automatic transmission that gives you that kick when you put it in park, or that little roll. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. The 2000 Audi A6 with a 4.2 review. These cars are really rare, really great cars if they're well maintained. You know, good car, great car for the money, really. So I hope you all enjoyed. Have a good one.